Morning all. Let's have a look at the Uruguayan Immortal game this morning. This is a very interesting game from 1943, the Uruguayan Chess Championship. So playing white is a player called Molinari, playing black is a player called Roux Cabral. So let's see how this went. D4 from Molinari, and we saw a Slav defense emerging from the opening. Slav defense, very solid choice. Knight c3, now knight b d7 after e3 e6. Black's usual plan in this kind of setup will often be to play bishop d6 and then later maybe once this bishop moves, taking an e5 to free the game. That's a usual kind of plan. We see after bishop d3 actually immediately a d takes c4 here, and there's another plan that's revealed, a quick b5 kicking the bishop back to d3, and now a6. So the idea of this, leaving the bishop on at f8 for a moment, is to accelerate this kind of this nice bishop perhaps on this diagonal. And in fact, after castling, again leaving the bishop on f8, just accelerating the action with c5 just to sort out this bishop. We see white playing now b3, okay, to try and sort out his own queen's bishop issue. Bishop b7, queen e2. Okay, so for the moment it looks as though it's about equal, but black actually seems to have more than equality after queen b6. There's a little bit of pressure on the center. Rook d1, bishop e7. On the other hand now, black's queenside pawns are questioned. Are these actually good or are they targets? There is a battery, after all, queen and bishop, on this structure, and it's emphasised now with a4. Now does black really want to play b4 and give up the c4 square a little bit to a piece? Well, he does. b4 is played. And then we see a seemingly powerful knight manoeuvre, knight b1, with the potential knight manoeuvre, rather, of knight d2 to c4 with tempo. So it looks as though, has black given up that c4 square? Isn't that an important square strategically? Well, let's see. Rook c8 is played, knight bd2. Now black plays c takes d4, and we see knight c4 kicking the queen. Queen stays on that diagonal of queen a7. And now white doesn't take with the e pawn. White takes with the knight here. Knight takes d4. Black now castles. Bishop d2, putting some pressure on b4, and maybe, you know, knight a5 is also a useful resource for white. That's shut down now with a5, but weakening b5 a little bit now, and that's gone into with knight b5, kicking the queen again, queen a8, and now we have some pressure on g2 here. But, and the big but here, surely, actually, in this position, black seems to be allowing a seemingly powerful move to try and win this light square bishop instead of defending this pawn. Meekly, white now plays knight bd6, forking basically rook and the bishop, and that is such a nice bishop to try and keep. Black actually in this position played a very interesting move. Can you guess what black played here? If I give you 10 seconds, starting from now. Okay, black played bishop takes g2, an exchange sacrifice. He wants to keep this lovely bishop, this lovely diagonal, lovely queen on a8, pressure on white's king side. So white wins the exchange with knight takes c8, and now threatens also knight takes e7. That has to be recaptured, it seems. No time really for this. Maybe something like just f3 would be defending against if black wanted to create a mate threat. So rook takes c8 was played. Now f3 is not good because actually that would lose the exchange here. So white tries rook e1. Okay, getting out of the way in fact of the skewering move, bishop f3. Well, it's not a skewer, but it's still played though, bishop f3, queen f1. So it looks as though, okay, this is a comfortable diagonal, but surely black is just an exchange down. Where is the exact compensation? Can black actually make use of this entrenched bishop on f3? Well, the move queen d5 shows the idea that immediately actually queen g5 check is threatened. Quite crude, but maybe effective. That has to be stopped. It's stopped with the move e4, which at first sight, hold on a sec, e4 is really good. It attacks the queen, bishop covers the g5 square. You know, maybe okay, queen h5, but then white has options surely in that position. Quite a few options. The immediate danger might be passed. Maybe in fact bishop f4 and then try and defend with bishop g3 against, say, queen g4. Well, let's see, in the game continuation, another very, very interesting move is played here. Can you guess what it is if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay. Black plays rook takes c4. Unbelievably. The point is now, if e takes, then rook g4 is a very powerful check, winning back the material and with advantage. Okay, so in this position, b takes c4 is played, but how does black continue the attack? Why is this more effective in black's view than just playing rook, the queen to h5 immediately? Well, the queen is played to h5 now, so still with this menacing threat of queen g4 and also queen g6. Now we see this defensive resource being used, bishop f4, just to be able to get in the way with bishop g3. Black starts piling up the pressure now with knight g4. Okay, what is the immediate threat here now though? White tries in this position bishop e2, because perhaps, you know, white wants to get rid of these pieces, because maybe if another piece comes in, this looks really dangerous now. For example, like this on f2. For a moment though, black just responds now with knight d e5, just nicely protecting that bishop. And now white tries to evict black's pieces with h3. They're uncomfortably sitting around the king here. So h3 is played. This is just plainly ignored with this next very powerful move, bishop c5. If hg, then there's queen h1 mate. So white tries bishop g3, and now things get very, very interesting indeed. Can you guess what white plays in this position? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Pardon me, what black plays in this position? Okay. Black plays knight takes f2, just getting the bishop potentially out of the way. There doesn't seem to be too many options to this, otherwise this knight's going to be on a rampage here. So that has to be taken with bishop takes f2, and now we see a very forcing move, queen g5 check. Forcing basically queen, the queen check now is forcing basically king h2. And now another forcing move is played in this position. Queen f4 check. Now white has not too many options here. He can't move the king, not that he wants to, because queen g3 is now mating, making use of this pin. If queen g2 then just mate, that will be the end of the game. So white tries bishop g3, but can you guess now, and this is really incredible actually, can you guess what black plays in this position? And if you can find the follow-up, that's absolutely amazing. Congratulations to you if you can see the follow-up. If I give you 10 seconds here, or you might want to pause the video. Okay, starting from now. Okay, black plays bishop g1, incredibly interesting move. You can immediately see that king takes g1 is no good. That's like mating. So basically this next reply is absolutely seemingly forced. Queen takes g1, but queen takes g1 is kind of letting the king not have too many retreat squares. And you might think, well, what's the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? What is black thinking of here, giving up this bishop like this? Can you spot now how black finishes off the game in this position if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, knight g4 check, another totally forcing move. There's no options for white. He has to take the knight. And in taking the knight, a kind of weakness of the last move is generated. This open road to the king now. This didn't happen. White, I think, resigned here. Well, in this position after taking, maybe he resigned. But it's just mating. Queen h6 is mating. The only legal move would be bishop h4. Queen takes h4 is mate. Quite a brutal game, really. I think we should look from the winner's side when we go over this just briefly, just to show technically. Now let's have a look from black's perspective. Was black doing okay all along? So he accelerated completely this bishop, which actually was very, very useful on the diagonal. It started to creep into white's kingside light squares. This entire strategy of going for the quick c5 seems very relevant for white's king safety during the course of the game. This positional concession, it seems, here, it seems as though black was doing okay giving up that c4 square. This wriggling with the queen is very hypermodern-esque to get the queen to a8. It's a very hypermodern maneuver. I think Reti would be proud, not only controlling the centre from afar, but pointing at white's king as well as an added bonus. So coming to a8 is a nifty maneuver, but in the meantime white is getting some seemingly very dangerous squares and opportunities, and he tries to take out this bishop here with knight b5 and winning the exchange. But our engine friend likes bishop takes g2 and also even rook takes c4 here, with the idea of just getting into white's kingside squares. So bishop takes g2, what's an exchange? The logic is emphasizing that white's king safety has been compromised with this bishop takes g2 move. From a logical point of view, forget millions of variations, forget scrutiny, forget looking at millions of finesses. Look, logically, white has a compromised king side here. Okay, he's losing, black is losing the exchange, but black's fine now. He's got also attacking opportunities using c5 potentially, or using d5 to get to white's king. White tries rook e1. It looks as though black was already better. Bishop f3, much better after rook e1. Another defensive try, e4, try and cut out the diagonal. Knight takes e4 is possible. Let's see what's going on here. If takes, knight takes d2 check. Knight f3 check. It seems black would be okay in this kind of continuation, but that looks to be a stronger continuation in the game. Rook e1 looks a bit meek as played, giving black really exactly what he wants, to be able to come in now with the queen, because e4 would have also deprived this maneuver, which is very powerful and effective, simple and effective as well. Just queen d5. Okay, we get e4 now. And now we see this rook takes c4. Maybe it wasn't strictly necessary. Rook takes c4. Maybe queen h5 also looks apparently very strong. In this continuation, knight c5. Okay, queen's getting a bit overloaded. Perhaps rook d8. Maybe the bishop's getting a bit overloaded now. And now we see rook takes d3 being mentioned. What is going on here? Ooh, all sorts of material winning tactics are emerging. So okay, it seems as though queen h5 might be really good as well. If white's getting overloaded tactically, But in the game we see a beautiful move though, aesthetically. Rook takes c4. Might not be technically the best, according to the engine, but now, no, the engine likes it. The engine likes it now. Rook takes c4. Maybe even better than what it was thinking. Plus 2.38 after rook takes c4. It was thinking here, in this position, it was indicating queen h5, but now rook takes c4 is also on the radar. Okay, so rook takes c4, queen h5 is very powerful. That looks to be very, very powerful. So one defensive try seems to be failing. Bishop f4. Now in the game knight g4 was played, but apparently there's an amazing resource which only a computer could come up with. Perhaps this resource here, I think it's a way of making the bishop irrelevant. Actually, I suspect if we look at this resource, bishop d6, it looks like a sneaky drag and drop tactic. So if takes, I guess we shut out the bishop with e5. So it's not relevant for defending against queen g4. That's like a nice drag and drop tactic. White would have to give up the queen, or if h3, this looks nasty. And again we get this tactical blow knight g4 emerging. So if takes here, check. Queen f2 is mating here. It's quite sweet, all these continuations. Mating. So let's go back. So that's a nice drag and drop tactic. Wow. But in the game knight g4, okay, not as hot. And it's as though white might actually be technically okay on this brief analysis with bishop e2 as played. So bishop d6, very powerful idea. But now knight g4 is also coming good after bishop e2. Even this continuation again is coming up good. Knight d e5. What does white play? If he took the knight, let's try this. Queen takes e5, threatens mate on h2. If queen h3, then we just maybe, okay, we take. And what's the idea here? The rook, overloading, tactical overloading, combining multiple threats in this game. Tactical overloading. If white has to spend time now safeguarding the rook, then that's no good. No good. Black would be doing very well. So, wow. So, knight e5 is also great here. And we see the bishop c5 being played. It seems also knight takes f2 might even have been possible. So if queen takes f2, queen takes h3, I guess now we're threatening bishop c5 and queen g2. So for example, well, even better though, no, bishop c5 not needed, just knight takes f3 wins the queen. Pardon me. So this is pretty nasty. I think bishop c5 is the threat though. If black doesn't take on f3, well, say he plays bishop takes, say white plays bishop takes e5, or that's mates here anyway. Okay, say white plays bishop h2, then we do get bishop c5 as the deflection away from the defensive g2. So bishop f1 here, queen g4 is crushing because we've got a pin now on the queen. In fact, that pin can show white's king is totally compromised. So in the game, after h3 we saw bishop c5, bishop g3, which is good anyway. Knight takes f2, beautiful stuff. Forcing moves. Forcing move again. And another forcing move is coming up. Very, very powerful. In fact, knight g4 is also strong here, is also mate in 4. Knight g4. And it still relies on this, even in this different move order. Because if we had played queen h6 here, then white escapes with queen h3. It's exceptionally important to run the king out of the air, like we make air for the king sometimes with a move like h3 or h6. Here we want to run the king out of air to kind of create a virtual back row mate, except it's not on a row, it's on a file. We're creating a kind of file mate by running the king out of the air, by first playing bishop g1 check here. Bishop g1. And if king takes, we have queen takes g3, mating. And if queen takes, we've run the king out of air for a file mate. Queen h6, mating on file. Wow. I hope you enjoyed that game as much as me. Great game, the Uruguayan Immortal. Some backgrounds. The Uruguayan champion of 1948, and then a long time later, 1970, is the player with the black pieces here. He's got about 15 games at chessgames.com. His opponent just won, actually. So not so... he hasn't won the Uruguayan ever, but look, the player with black twice. Very interesting. So basically, this became dubbed as the Uruguayan Immortal because it saw we saw the exchange sacrifice twice. We saw sacrifices of 2 minor pieces, and after 33 moves, all of the remaining pieces are emprises, if you prefer the pronunciation, emprises, and the opponent cannot stop the checkmate. All 3 of the remaining pieces are emprises. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Let's go to the final position. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.